Welcome to AK Anime Explainer. Today is explanation of Soul Land 3, Legend of the Dragon King Part 282. Without any delay, start explanation. The soldiers and mechas saluted him. Good day, Senior Officer. Aruhan and Saima Jinkai were speechless when they saw the gaze of the soldiers with which they looked at Tang Wulin. They were burning with radiant passion. That was true. Almost every Blood God army soldier witnessed how Tang Wulin sent back the powers of darkness, saved the entire army and sealed the abyssal plain. The scene of Tang Wulin holding back the abyssal creatures and guarding the abyssal passage alone had been deeply engraved in their hearts. In their hearts, this person was the martial god of this generation. Not everyone understood that Tang Wulin had been relying on planar power back then. Only the high-ranking officials of the Blood God army were aware of the secrets of the Blood God's great array. They are spies who appeared during the disturbance caused by the abyssal plain. The commander has given the order for them to be put to death. Senior Officer Blood 1 has already gone to the commander's office to plead for them. The soldiers explained the situation in simple words. Tang Wulin looked puzzled. Since when did Commander Zhong and Senior Blood 1 become this rash? Regardless of how careful they were towards the evil soul masters, they could not possibly have treated human lives as if hay. At this moment, Cao Deji's voice sounded in his head. These are the bodyguards we prepared for you. Tell them that you're going to plead for them and then come to old Zhong's office. Tang Wulin was smart. He immediately understood the situation. He hastily said, Senior Disciple Brother Saima, calm down. I'll immediately go and ask about all this. Aruhan said with a forlorn expression, Junior Disciple Brother, be quick. I'm about to freeze to death here. All right, I'll go right away. As Tang Wulin said this, he removed his outer jacket and covered Aruhan with it. Aruhan was instantly touched as his eyes reddened. Saima Jinkai beside him bulged his eyes. He seemed to be asking, what about me? What about me? Tang Wulin apologetically smiled at him and said, I'm sorry, I only have one jacket. But I'll be back real quick. Wait here. After he finished, he quickly moved in the direction of Zhong Huanyun's office. Ha ha. We're saved. Aruhan laughed loudly. Their life or death crisis had finally been resolved. He believed that there would not be a problem anymore if Tang Wulin was the one pleading for them. Saima Jinchi's expression was one of grief and indignation. How could he? That guy's as strong as an ox. I'm not as strong as him. I'm the one who's colder here. Why didn't you give the jacket to me instead? Aruhan glanced at him and triumphantly said, See this? This is my junior disciple brother's garment. A military general's uniform. Have you ever worn one before? You son of a bastard. Saima Jinkai could no longer bear it and swore at Aruhan. However, Aruhan felt completely free from any inhibitions right now. I'm an orphan, I don't have a father. I say this military uniform is quite comfortable. It's so warm. So is my heart. Ha ha ha. Tang Wulin was unaware of Aruhan and Saima Jinkai bickering immediately after he left. He had just reached Zhong Huanyun's office. Commander, Senior Blood 1, what's all this about? Tang Wulin asked in confusion. Cao Deji faintly smiled and said, They came during the abyssal disturbance and were captured as spies. Since you're leaving, you should have someone beside you whom you can rely on. These two are wild and intractable beings. With your saving grace, they would be more subtle when they are under you. You shouldn't ask too many questions. The point is we're the bad guys here and now you can go be the good guy. Old Zhong, you up? Zhong Huanyun chuckled. He stood up and said, let's go. I'll go with you. He patted Tang Wulin's shoulder and walked out of the office. Tang Wulin could not help but feel at a loss on whether he was supposed to laugh or cry here. However, his heart was warm and fuzzy. How could he not understand that there was no way the commander and senior blood one, both being generals, would do such a thing if it were not for his sake? When the bickering Sima Jinkai and Aruhang saw Zhong Huanyun with 3 general stars on his shoulders, they instantly shut their mouths. They were as silent as cicadas in winter. Zhong Huanyun's expression was dark as he coldly eyed them. Even a killing intent seemed to faintly flicker in his eyes. If Tang Wulin was unaware of this being an act beforehand, he would have believed what he saw. He exclaimed in his heart. Don't tell me Commander Zhong had also spent some time on Demon Island. He could win awards with these acting skills. He had fought with Aruhang and Sima Jinkai before. He naturally knew just how wild and intractable these two could be. However, these two looked as if they did not dare to breathe in front of Zhong Huanyun. They must have been truly terrified of him. Zhong Huanyun said coldly, Wulin, is this really your senior disciple brother? Tang Wulin hastily nodded. He is, Commander. He cultivates the same method as I do. I won't mistake him for anyone else. He's our body sect's senior disciple brother. Zhong Huanyun nodded. Very well then, we'll temporarily clear him of the suspicion of being a spy. However, trespassing Blood God Army's barracks is also punishable by death. Seeing that he's related to you, we can spare his life, but there must be some punishment. Otherwise, it'll seem like any Tom, Dick, and Harry can come and cross me, a blood god. Aruhang and Sima Jinkai gulped. Tom, Dick, and Harry. We're nobodies now. The two of them exchanged glances. Their hostility disappeared. They felt as if they shared the same fate. Release him. Zhong Huanyun pointed at Aruhang. The soldier immediately went forward and released Aruhang from the metal pole. Then Zhong Huanyun looked at Sima Jinkai and said to Tang Wulin, this person has no connections with you, right? Huh? Tang Wulin was slightly shocked. He truly had no connections with Sima Jinkai. At most, they were like-minded opponents. That was why he was startled by Zhong Huanyun's question. Kill him. Zhong Huanyun swung down his arm. The two black mechas raised their soul cannons without hesitation. Amidst the explosion sounds, 2 soul ammunitions shot towards Sima Jinkai. Have mercy. Tang Wulin and Aruhang shouted the same words at the same time. The difference was that Aruhang could not move at the moment, while Tang Wulin quickly moved and defended Sima Jinkai. Boom! Boom! The 2 soul ammunitions exploded on Tang Wulin's body and a layer of golden halo naturally rose on his body's surface. This layer of golden halo appeared faint. When the 2 soul ammunitions exploded on Tang Wulin's body, the glow had shone brighter. However, this layer of golden halo had easily blocked the 2 powerful soul ammunitions. Those were the main firearms of the 2 black mechas. Even Zhong Huanyun slightly raised his eyebrows. Tang Wulin did not have such ability before this. Even if he wanted to block these 2 soul ammunitions, he would have had to use his fists. Dragon Air. This was a natural ability of the Golden Dragon King that appeared after Tang Wulin's cultivation base broke through 7 rings and he absorbed the 11th seal's energy. Dragon Air and Dragon Might were among the most important of Golden Dragon King's natural abilities. He was testing out this new ability. The power of its defensive ability had even shocked Tang Wulin himself. When he unleashed Dragon Air, his dragon core shrunk inwardly. It was equivalent to squeezing out the blood essence power out of his body to form a layer of protection around him. Compared to other Golden Dragon King seals, this skill consumed less energy, but its powers were great. Moreover, this Dragon Air was clearly applicable to all of Tang Wulin's abilities. Sima Jinqi's breathing had almost stopped at that moment. What was this situation? He had not even said a thing in his own defense before he was nearly killed. Regardless of how tough his personality was, his back was drenched in cold sweat. Tang Wulin, although you've just accomplished a great deed, you can't keep going against military orders. Zhong Huanyun stared at Tang Wulin with an icy face. His limit Dolor's aura burst forth from his body. The dragon air on Tang Wulin's body had been clearly impacted as it flickered with golden light. He hastily said, "Commander, let me explain. I know Sima Jinkai as well. We fought against each other in the Federal Star Do Battle Network Challenge before. He's one of the most outstanding people among the younger generation of the army and an officer in the Southern Army Corps. I don't think he's an evil soul master either. I've felt his martial soul before, it's somewhat similar to mine. I ask you to please show mercy. Let us at least investigate this thoroughly before making any decisions." The bright mirror Dolor's eyes beamed. "Investigate? As it is, I'm already busy enough with the internal investigation of the army. You should know how perilous of a situation we were in, on that day. If it weren't for the evil soul master spies that infiltrated our ranks, the army wouldn't have suffered such heavy losses. I'd rather be safe than sorry here. I don't have time to investigate some nobody." Tang Wulin was at a loss for how he should go about continuing the conversation. This was because the greatest loss they suffered was before Blood God's Great Array was activated and the abyssal passage was suddenly opened. In other words, it was in the earlier moments of the great battle. As for the latter parts of it, only Blood 9 had almost lost his life, but he was still saved by him. They did not seem to have suffered any other losses after that. However, he could not possibly expose Zhong Huanyun now. He could only continue. "Commander, I can vouch for him. He's definitely not a spy. I once again ask you to have mercy. I'm willing to exchange my contributions for his case to be investigated thoroughly." Zhong Huanyun coldly looked at him and snorted. "Very well then. Since you're willing to compensate with your contributions, that means you'll forfeit your chance of being promoted to a lieutenant general. These two can be spared from the death penalty, but they must be punished for trespassing. Lock them back up in the confinement room. We'll decide on the punishment later." Aruhang stared with his mouth agape. He had thought that the entire ordeal would be settled. Now it seemed that it was highly likely that they would still be punished. Tang Wulin gave him a reassuring look. When Sima Jinkai walked past Tang Wulin, he whispered, "Thank you." Although it was only 2 words, they were full of emotion at the moment. If it were not for Tang Wulin, he would have been long dead. He had saved his life today. Tang Wulin sighed and lightly nodded towards him. Aruhang and Sima Jinkai were brought away. Zhong Huanyun's killing intent faded away. He waved toward Tang Wulin and said, "Go back to your cultivation. We'll release them when you leave. We'll not polish these 2 hotheads anymore. Even if we do, they won't become outstanding talents." Tang Wulin's forehead was wet with sweat. That was some polishing. It was comparable to the Demon Island already. 7 days later, Tang Wulin finally ended his meditation and accumulation with a long skyward roar. He successfully departed from his closed cultivation state. He was in no hurry to leave. He spent another 10 days in forging all the metals he needed in his own workshop, including the metals he would use to build his mecha. For the building of his mecha, he had requested that the army's mecha makers build it. He would retrieve it in the future. As for his battle armor, he did not request the army's mecha makers to craft it. The rare metals he prepared for his 3-word battle armor this time were mostly soul refined and were products of fuse forging many other metals. When his battle armor was crafted, he would have to be by its side to support the process. If he was not present, this battle armor would not be crafted suitably. That was why he decided to carry the prepared metals with him. When the time was right, he would build his battle armor. When Tang Wulin saw Ruheng and Sima Jinkai again, the two of them had slimmed down. Actually, there was no way they would not slim down. They were only fed with some weak vegetable broth every day. They had not even consumed any dry food these few days. It would have been weird if had not slimmed down. The entire experience gave Ruheng a strong urge to cry when he saw Tang Wulin again. Zhong Huanyun had officially decided the punishment for them. They would be stationed as Tang Wulin's guards for 3 years. At the same time, a remote-controlled explosive collar was placed around each of their necks. They were made with the latest technology. It was virtually impossible to remove them without the key and password. If they tried to force it open, it would explode immediately. Even Ruheng's body could not possibly withstand an explosion of its magnitude. Tang Wulin was speechless. The commander surely had some sleepless nights thinking of how he could torment these two. Other than the two of them, there were also others who followed Tang Wulin. Tang Wulin's good friend Overlord Dragon Soul Master Jiang Wuyue, Iron Blood Battalion's Chief Titan Ape Soul Master Ma Shan, Icy Snow Female Soul Master Long Yuxue, and Tang Wulin's Mecha Teacher, Ling Wuyue. These people were all elites among the Blood God Army's younger generation, especially Ma Shan. Although he was still unable to break through to the rank of a title d'honneur, with Tang Wulin's help in forging he had finally completed his 3-word battle armor. He was at the epitome of a strength-type soul master. He was always the main combat personnel in the army. More importantly, these people were the most familiar ones to Tang Wulin. The 4 of them with the addition of Gale Saber Demon Sima Jinkai and Strength God Ruheng, this lineup could definitely be described as extravagant. Although there was no title d'honneur among them, many of them had cultivation bases that were not inferior to title d'honneurs. Other than that, there were another 20 Blood God Army warriors. They all had cultivation bases of a 6-ring Soul Emperor or higher and were 2-word battle armor masters. At the same time, they were Black Mecha masters too. If this combat strength were to be placed in an ordinary army, they would have made up the entire army's collective high-end combat strength by themselves. However, they were currently Tang Wulin's unit. They were given the name Blood Dragon Unit by Zhong Huanyun. Tang Wulin included, they numbered 27 strong soldiers. The 20 warriors were handpicked by Blood One himself. Other than their individual combat strength, their martial souls were more or less related to dragons. In other words, they would be affected by Tang Wulin's Dragon Might and Golden Dragon Rage domain. As Tang Wulin's companion, this influence would definitely be positive for them. When Tang Wulin saw 2 rows of black mechas lined up neatly before him awaiting his orders, his eyes could not help but redden. The army truly spared no effort for him. Although the core of Blood God Army was still the Blood God Battalion with the commander Zhong Huanyun and the other 20 or so titled d'honneurs, the ones who would leave with him was the future of the army. It could be seen as Zhong Huanyun and Blood One entrusting the Blood God Army's future to him. This friendship no longer had a need for words. Tang Wulin hammered his chest with his right fist. He reverently saluted the 2 limit duos before him. Zhong Huanyun, Blood One, and the other blood gods behind them saluted him as well. Initially, there were some among Blood God Battalion's blood gods that had wanted to leave with Tang Wulin. The most worked up among them were Blood 8 and Blood 9. Blood 9's life was equivalent to a gift given by Tang Wulin. However, someone had to guard the Blood God's great array at the Abyssal Passage. Blood God Battalion could not leave this place on a whim. They had no choice but to stay behind. Wulin, take care. You have my thanks. When I have a successor, I'll surely join your Blood Dragon unit. Blood 9 gave Tang Wulin a great hug. His words were filled with determination as well. Tang Wulin nodded strongly. You're welcome anytime. Senior Blood One, Commander, I promise you as long as I'm alive I'll bring back all men I've taken with me, he said with a deep voice. When they heard his words, the personnel in the Blood God Army were touched. Only Ruheng and Sima Jinkai had complaints in their hearts. Who wants to come back? Who would ever want to come back? We don't. We're never setting foot on this wretched place again. Blood One said with a deep voice, the most important thing is you staying alive. Because your life is no longer your own. Your life belongs to the entire army, the entire human race. Do you understand? Tang Wulin himself could be regarded as the divine tool used by humans against the abyssal plane. No matter what, he could not be put in danger. Understood? Don't worry. I'll take good care of myself. Blood One nodded. Go ahead then. All the best. Tang Wulin saluted once again before he turned around and took the lead to leap up into the air. With the battle armor attached to his body and the dragon wings on his back, he glided toward the east direction. Behind him, the Gale Saber Demon Sima Jinkai, the Strength God A Ruhan, Ling Wuyue, Ma Shan, Jiang Wuyue, Long Yushue, and 12 members of the Blood Dragon unit leaped up simultaneously as they chased after him, flying into the distance. A faint smile emerged on Cao Deji's face soon after he watched their departing figures. The right opportunity comes to the right person at the right time. Wulin, all the best. We can only assist you as you embark on your journey. How far you'll go depends on your own effort. Zhong Huanyun heaved a sigh. Hey, I already miss him. Cao Deji chuckled. Perhaps, you're unwilling to part with all the elite members he has taken along with him. Cough, cough. Cao Deji's eyes were twinkling with radiance. The vast world of the Doluo continent belongs to these young men now. We shall see what sort of radiance he'll bloom to be. Zhong Huanyun frowned. You don't look like you're worried at all. You should know how powerful the enemies that he'll confront are. Cao Deji spoke calmly. Without powerful opponents, how can we sharpen his skills? Moreover, he's not going to fight alone. Do you really think that Shrek Academy and the Tang sect which existed for the past 20,000 years on the continent can be destroyed by 2 godkiller-ranked fixed-soul ammunitions? Zhong Huanyun's face brightened as if he had figured out something. Let's go back. I'm going to examine the seal a little closer. I believe that the abyssal plane will behave itself for a period of time after taking such a beating this time. I'm afraid that the so-called Sage King is severely injured. Going by our past experience, it's even possible that we won't encounter another life tide in a few centuries. The abyss suffered severe losses this time. 2 plane seeds from the 108 layers were completely destroyed, that even the foundation was shaken. A large number of abyssal kings died in the battle, since most of them opened the passage by force. Although their lives could be resurrected by condensing the abyssal energy, it would still require a very long time. The impact of the battle to the abyssal passage was not as serious as when the abyssal plane first invaded the Doluo continent back at the beginning. After the initial event, the abyssal plane did not appear in the Doluo continent's abyssal passage for thousands of years. The Blood God army finally took a breather after the battle. They could still enter the abyssal passage through the branched passage. Cao Deji had agreed to Tang Wulin's departure for the purpose of grooming him so he could handle the abyssal plane in the future. Tang Wulin needed more time. Although he was already a soul sage now, the powerhouses, could see the potential in Tang Wulin to develop further in the future. Judging by Tang Wulin's present condition, he could become a title Doluo, perhaps a hyper Doluo, or even a limit Doluo in the future. Once he achieved that, he would pose the biggest threat to the abyssal plane then. It would be possible for him to resolve the menace of the abyssal plane. There was no need to annihilate the abyss so long as he could make the abyssal creatures break off the passage and frighten them away. A gloomy aura filled the air of the grey-white world and oppressed the abyssal creatures so horrendously that they felt suffocated. In reality, this situation lasted 3 full abyssal days. Each layer of the abyssal plane was shaking because their Lord of the Abyss, the Peerless Sage King, was raging with anger. Surprisingly, he had failed. The abyss invasion of the human world had failed despite having paid a heavy price for it. They did not even manage to kill the man who could possibly threaten the source of the abyss. When the Ant Emperor's plane seed was completely devoured, such that a layer of the abyssal plane disintegrated, the entire abyssal plane shook as a result. It happened twice in succession. The 2 plane seeds disintegrated completely such that the abyssal king sensed massive waves of danger. They finally understood why the Sage King insisted on finding the human at all costs to kill him. The human had threatened the existence of the abyss. The Sage King was seated high above on an enormous chair. His aura, which was capable of suppressing the entire abyss, shook it violently due to his overbearingness. It was as easy as pie for the true lord of the abyssal plane to annihilate any layer of the abyss. The 108 layers of the abyss were like the component parts which formed his body. The deepest layer was where his origin source laid. At present, the abyssal kings were busy gathering their strength quietly. Initially, there were 107 silhouettes with the exception of the Sage King, yet only 82 of them remained now. The abyss paid a heavy price when 10 of the abyssal kings sacrificed their energies to support the abyssal Sage King's final assault to open the spatial passage temporarily. The abyssal Sage King was truly powerful, but when he invaded another plane by force as the Lord of the Abyss, he would need to confront the massive pressure produced by the entire plane. Tang Wulin was capable of absorbing such a vast amount of origin energy through the blood god's great array during the battle and even managed to prevent overloading his body. It was precisely because the entire Dolor continent plane was protecting him at the time. Otherwise, how could an insignificant soul emperor like him exert such a tremendous effect at the time? However, the Abyss was incapable of defeating Tang Wulin despite the heavy price it paid. It was hard to imagine as even the Abyssal Sage King was injured as well. The Abyssal Sage King kept his quiet for the past 3 abyssal days. No one dared to make any noise. They could not help feeling sad as they mourned the deaths of their kind. Perhaps, the human world might one day possess the Abyss destructive energy and the Abyss would then be mankind's stepping stone to the divine realm. In any case, the Abyss would never agree to the idea, much less accept it. That's God's strength, the strength of a true God. The Abyssal Sage King sounded calm with hardly any emotions. However, the numerous Abyssal Kings felt relieved upon hearing those few simple words. At least, the Sage King had passed the period of deep contemplation. Yet, was it truly God's strength? How could a God exist in the human world? A God's status should be independent of all the planes but remain in a state of sublimation, and also a status pursued by every plane. The Abyssal Sage King could have been a god if he wished to. However, as the Lord of the Abyssal Plane, he was bestowed with numerous inherent superior capabilities along with disadvantages as well. With the Abyssal Sage King's cultivation base, it would not be much of an issue for him to be elevated into a God King of the Abyssal Plane's divine realm. However, he would face a problem that no other living creature would face, and it would be precisely because he was the Lord of the Abyssal Plane. The so-called Lord of the Plane was the core of the entire plane. He dominated over everything in the entire plane and, if he wished to, he could even destroy the entire plane and annihilate all the abyssal creatures. He was the master who controlled all the abilities of this world. Yet, he was fused together with the entire abyssal plane, because he was the Lord of the Abyssal Plane and he was overly powerful. In a sense, he was the Abyssal Plane and the Abyssal Plane was him. In other words, if he wished to become a god, he would need to make the Abyssal Plane into a whole new divine realm. Aside from whether his act would result in a collision with the other existing divine realm, the energy needed to elevate a plane into a divine realm was unimaginable. As a result, he could only devour the energy of the other planes and use the life force from the other planes to nourish himself. There was a possibility for such an advancement only if he could ensure that his power as the Abyssal Sage King and the Lord of the Plane exceeded the power of the other divine realms. On the other hand, these abyssal monarchs could not hope to advance to another realm no matter how powerful they were so long as they were stuck below the god level and the abyss failed to become the divine realm. In this way, it was completely different from the Dolor continent. There was no true plane seed for the Dolor continent as the entire planar power had transformed into all forms of resources on the Dolor continent such as martial souls, soul beasts, humans, plants, seas, mountains, and rivers. These were all the constituents of the planar power which formed the Dolor continent. Any living creature could utilize these resources to cultivate to the peak of mankind to stand a chance of charging at the divine realm. However, it was based on the premise that the divine realm still existed. The divine realm which initially mirrored the Dolor continent sealed all possibility of godhood for the soul beasts and animals. It then vanished without a trace for a long time. This was why no one was capable of becoming a god for thousands of years. Nonetheless, there was at least more than one person who managed to cultivate to godhood in the history of mankind. That was the difference between these two planes. The Abyssal Sage King had deliberately planned this for many years. He had been seeking the opportunity to elevate the Abyssal Plane to a divine realm all along. He had searched high and low for the opportunity. After a long time, he finally found the Dolor continent, a world filled with life force. Yet, he did not expect to lose the first great battle back at the beginning. Worse, he was worried over the possibility that he might be counterattacked by the Dolor continent. Sage King, was that truly God's strength? I thought the divine realm which belonged to the Dolor continent plane had already vanished a long time ago, asked the confused Black Monarch. If not for the fact that the divine realm that mirrored the Dolor continent plane had already vanished, they would not have dared to link up with the Dolor continent plane and invade it. Although the divine realm would not intervene with the lower-grade plane, it would step in when the situation warranted it, especially if the invaded plane belonged to the divine realm. The abyss might be powerful, but it was nothing when compared to the true divine realm. The Sage King spoke calmly, "I'm not sure, but the energy emitted by them at the end was pure divine power. Perhaps those two humans are not equipped with such divine power, but they had the God seed in their bodies. They relied on the Dolor's planar power to unleash the God's power. Otherwise, how were they capable of defeating me? I truly didn't expect such power to exist on the Dolor continent. No wonder that tiny human could devour the abyssal energy. He had the God's shadow behind his back, and also the life seed in his body grew sturdier and stronger after the battle. If I can acquire and engulf it, then every creature on the Dolor plane will give its life force to our abyss through the wilting process." At last, the Lord of the Abyssal Plane, the Abyssal Sage King without peer, grew excited. The numerous Abyssal monarchs all felt astonished at present. For the past few Abyssal days, they thought that the Sage King was in a rage. Yet, it did not appear so. The Abyssal Sage King spoke coldly, "I've been searching painstakingly for so many years. I've finally found the shortcut which will truly allow me to advance our abyss. How can I possibly give up so easily? The greed of mankind is boundless. We will have the opportunity to use our human allies. Contact them and I'll personally express our good faith to them. It appears that we've failed this time, but actually, the biggest gain for us is that we've found the location of the Dolor continent's life seed. So what if he devoured all of you? As long as I can devour him in the end, all the life force from the Dolor continent will become a part of our abyss. By then, I can open up the divine realm by force to advance the entire abyss. Our Sage King of keen intelligence and excellent judgment." The numerous abyssal monarchs worshipped him on bended knees and saluted with respect at the same time. The Black Monarch lowered her head. Her pair of enticing eyes were shimmering with radiance as if she was pondering about something. The feeling of soaring freely over the sky was pure ecstasy. After his cultivation base broke through to the 7-ring level, he was officially a soul sage. In addition to the advancement of his spiritual power to the spirit domain, Tang Wulin felt that the freedom was more profound than before. There seemed to be countless elements of different attributes hovering around his body as they cheered excitedly in the air. The wind element supported his body, the water and fire element spun around his body, while light nourished his body. All the different sensations changed Tang Wulin's perception of the entire Dolor continent. Is this the true world of the Dolor continent? Naturally, he acquainted himself with the spirit domain thoroughly after receiving the care of the entire Dolor continent plane. At the same time, Tang Wulin's perception of every element outside was enhanced countless times. He had an affinity for the elements which far exceeded other soul masters. The entire plane was attracted to him, so it was easier for him to absorb the origin energy now. Tang Wulin sensed the elements of different attributes passing through his body naturally and the pleasant sensation of being one with the sky. He could not help heaving a sigh in secret as he thought about how difficult it was when he first began cultivating many years ago. He remembered yielding half the result with twice the effort. He clearly recalled the disappointment and agony he felt when he purchased the gold song after he had worked painstakingly to earn enough money. At the time, he had thought of giving up and quitting cultivation altogether. After all, he had a useless martial soul, and even the spirit soul he bought with his hard-earned money turned out to be a defective creature. Fortunately, he persisted. Forging had made him firm, resolute, and ardent, such that he took it one step at a time till today. Everything was albeit related to the Golden Dragon King seal inside his body. More importantly, it was also the relentless effort of his spirit. Now that he had attained some accomplishment in his cultivation base, he could go looking for his parents and her at last. No matter how difficult his path forward was, he would overcome it. As long as he had a firm belief, it would not be an issue. Jiang Wuyue watched Tang Wulin flying in front of him as he felt powerless. Back in the beginning, Tang Wulin was a nobody, but a newly recruited soldier, when he first met him. At the time, Jiang Wuyue was already a battalion master who was daring and full-spirited. When he first sparred with Tang Wulin, he did not feel that the disparity between them both was so huge. Yet, Tang Wulin had grown stronger in the course of time. Moreover, his growth rate was terrifying. Jiang Wuyue could not even comprehend the extent of Tang Wulin's development. The final battle provided Jiang Wuyue the opportunity to witness Tang Wulin express his graceful king-like disposition. Although Tang Wulin borrowed the blood god's great array's strength, he managed to suppress the entire abyss almost by himself. In his eyes, it seemed to be the case. The two words, love rival, had appeared in his mind once before, but it was now long gone. How could Jiang Wuyue compete when they were utterly on different levels? Fortunately, Tang Wulin already had a girlfriend. Was the girl who appeared at the end his girlfriend? If it was the case, then it was truly. At this point, Jiang Wuyue looked toward Long Yushue by his side. Apart from Tang Wulin, Sima Jinkai, and Aruhan, the rest of them were flying their black mechas. After all, flying for a prolonged period without a seven-ringed cultivation base consumed a large amount of energy despite being clad in one's battle armor. The greatest advantage of the mecha was that it did not consume one's physical strength. Long Yushue's black mecha was streamlined. Compared to the others, her newly forged black mecha appeared elegant. It was about 7 meters tall and svelte, just like her figure. There was no other weapon on her body except for a giant-sized soul firearm. Her firearm was over 8 meters long and needed to be carried askew on the mecha's back. The firearm was dark blue with countless fine runes engraved on its surface. The gun barrel was over 3 meters in length. It was called a firearm but should be considered a cannon instead. Despite Jiang Wuyue's cultivation base, he felt a piercing pain when he took a glance at it. On the other hand, Long Yushue, who was seated in her mecha, was watching Tang Wulin before her. As opposed to Jiang Wuyue's frustration, she felt perplexed. No wonder he doesn't fancy me. His lover is so beautiful and even more powerful. She witnessed with her own eyes when the purple-haired silhouette crossed over and arrived at Tang Wulin's side. She fused with him as one during his most dangerous moment. Even though they stood side by side for such a short moment, Long Yushue could clearly see that their eyes only saw each other. She had never seen such a look in Tang Wulin's gaze before. Even though his face showed more shock than anything else, it was also flooded with emotion. I bet that he can only hold no other in his heart. She is so outstanding and powerful. But why did she leave? She went in such baffling manner that I didn't even learn her name. Yes? I supposed only a girl like that deserves him. Even Long Yushue did not understand why she insisted on joining Tang Wulin's departing unit when they were engaged in internal selection. The original reason she gave her father was that she wished to take a look at the world outside. In reality, what was she hoping to do? Of course, she was aware of Jiang Wuyue's feelings for her, but the person who one falls for at first sight will remain as the first choice in one's heart for eternity. Even though she understood that it was impossible, the stubborn young maiden was still overly absorbed in her ideology. Tang Wulin is the general, the captain of the Blood Dragon unit. I'm his subordinate, so I guess it's good for me to take a look at his life too. Aruhan and Sima Jinchi's feelings were completely different from everybody else's. As they impatiently flew out of the great snowy mountains, following Tang Wulin, the first thing they felt was freedom. These were two strong, valiant men, but they thought they might just burst into tears at that moment. They were finally free. They were almost shot to death for no reason. To them, the Blood God army was simply hell on earth, so they did not wish to have any more contact with the place. Their hearts were filled with gratitude as they watched Tang Wulin flying forefront. If Tang Wulin had not managed to get there in time, they were afraid that they would truly have been in danger. Though they all had their own individual feelings, most of the Blood God Army soldiers that joined the Blood Dragon unit with Tang Wulin were around 30 years old, and they were all the elites of the elites. The majority were feeling even more fascinated upon leaving the Blood God Army. It had been so long since they left the Great Mountains. They had almost forgotten what the outside world looked like. In reality, the soldiers that chose to enter the Blood Dragon unit came from across the entire army. Many willingly joined after the hero, the Blood Dragon, was crucial in that perilous situation, but even more importantly, the soldiers wished to go outside to take a look too. This was especially true for those who were slightly younger. In the past, they carried a heavy burden on their shoulders. Who would not wish to take a look at the outside world? They had finally walked out of the place, so how could they not feel eager to explore? Tang Wulin was flying forward when he suddenly sensed something, and he slowed down slightly. In order to gauge his spirit domain spiritual power cultivation base during his flight, he unleashed his spiritual aura to allow himself to sense even further. This was one of the methods of cultivating spiritual power passed down by Cao Deji. The best cultivation method was to reach for one's limits continuously until one's spiritual power had achieved a certain level. Just like a moment ago, Tang Wulin suddenly sensed a blood essence fluctuation soaring to the sky within his spiritual consciousness. What was that? This blood essence fluctuation was even more powerful than his own. This was simply unimaginable. Tang Wulin frowned deeply as he gazed into the distance. The strength of this blood essence fluctuation far exceeded his own. If his spiritual power had not been great enough, he would not have even been able to sense that. Who was this powerhouse? Why had such a powerful creature appeared in the distant western frontier of the continent? From a human standpoint, such powerful blood essence fluctuation was completely beyond mankind's capabilities. Both Tang Wulin and his senior disciple brother Aruheng's blood essence fluctuation had already reached the maximum level for a human, but even both of them combined was still no match for the aura he had just sensed. Tang Wulin raised his hand. The group flying behind reduced their speed immediately. Aruheng arrived by Tang Wulin's side in a flash. "Junior brother, what happened?" Tang Wulin pointed in the direction detected by his spiritual power. "It seems like there is an extremely powerful creature over there. Should we avoid it all?" "Avoid it for what?" "Let's go take a look." Aruheng's eyes began to glow, and he flew toward the location indicated by Tang Wulin without the slightest hesitation. He was looking to spar with a powerhouse in an attempt to vent the pent-up anger he had gathered while in the Blood God Army. He had planned to have a match with Tang Wulin, but he was feeling slightly embarrassed after Tang Wulin had just saved him and Sima Jinkai. In addition, he had yet to recover from his mood earlier. Suddenly bumping into a worthy opponent was like a wish come true for him. "Senior brother, slow down." Tang Wulin hastily flapped the wings on his back as he followed behind. This blood essence fluctuation was truly extraordinary. The rest of the people followed behind hastily. Just then, a roar suddenly came from the distance, precisely where Tang Wulin had said the blood essence fluctuation was coming from. When the roar was heard, it was as if a giant, primitive beast was stretching its body. In the distance, they saw a golden light which made even the daylight seem dim. Long Yuxue could not help covering her rosy lips as she sat in the control cabin. Oh my God! What sort of creature was that? It was actually capable of unleashing such terrifying aura. Flying at the front, Aruheng hastily came to a halt in the sky while his expression turned slightly grim. It had only taken one single roar to unleash an aura that could even leave the heavens in awe. Just how powerful would a creature need to be in order to achieve that? Tang Wulin stopped next to Aruheng. For some reason, he felt a slight sense of familiarity toward the roar and aura. Gale Saber Demon Sima Jinkai stopped at Tang Wulin's other side. He muttered to himself, "Is it charging at us?" Uncertainty rippled through Tang Wulin's eyes. They had just left the Blood God Army, and it had been so well concealed besides. Why did this powerhouse appear here for no reason? Firstly, he was certain that it did not have an abyssal aura. Such a powerful abyssal creature could not exist without the abyssal passage. Secondly, he was sure that it was not an evil soul master. The exuberance of that gush of blood essence fluctuation was almost solid. It was like a small sun, bursting with masculinity, so this was not something an evil soul master could possess. So, it was neither an evil soul master nor a powerhouse from the abyssal plane. Tang Wulin had not provoked anyone. It was even less possible that someone could time it to such perfection. Could it be that a powerhouse had been engaged in closed-door cultivation here and had just finished? Tang Wulin shook his head. Let's go around it. He recognized the great responsibility on himself. The unknown powerhouse's ability was truly awe-inspiring, so it was better for them to avoid trouble whenever possible. It was best that they bypass it. Nevertheless, there are some things that are unavoidable, no matter how hard you try. Just as Tang Wulin was planning to have the group to circle around the other direction, the source of the incredible blood essence fluctuation seemed to have noticed them. In only a fraction of a second, the thick blood essence fluctuation was coming toward them at lightning speed. From a bird's eye view, one could even see a ball of dense dusk gold radiance shooting toward them. Is it truly heading toward us? Aruhung raised an eyebrow. Tang Wulin frowned. Everyone, stay alert. There was no need for him to give orders as the Blood God Army soldiers were all very experienced in actual combat. 24 black mecha dispersed rapidly as they arranged themselves battle formation best suited to each person's skills. They formed a semicircular barrier in front of Tang Wulin's group of 3 people. Instinctively, Jiang Wuyue made his black mecha shield Long Yushue, while Long Yushue pulled the gigantic soul firearm from her back and placed it on her shoulder. The enormous firearm was glowing with dashes of blue light on its surface as it gave out a soft humming sound. Ma Shan stood in front of Ling Wuyue with a pair of warhammers in his black mecha's hands. They were even larger than those he had used against Ma Shan previously. Faint green light shimmered on the warhammers, which was not just for aesthetics. The surface was equipped with high-frequency oscillatory wave. Even a black mecha's protective shield could not withstand many strikes coming from the combined might of his monstrous strength and high-frequency tremors. A slight smile appeared on Tang Wulin's face. He drew a circle with his hands as his entire body emitted a brilliant light. Faint golden radiance emerged as his 2-word battle armor attached to his body. This video will end here. Like video and subscribe to my channel.